what age did you know that hip hop was like your passion and you started dancing?
The age of 8, very, very young. I was in elementary school. A good friend of mine, Paul, came out one lunch morning and brought his cardboard out and his boombox, and he started breakdancing on the playground. And I followed Paul out, and I watched all the kids' reaction to Paul and what he was doing, and I was just mesmerized by it. I was like, I want to do that, because I just saw how much energy the kids got off of watching Paul do it. So after watching Paul do it, that following next day, because Paul lived behind the block from me, leaned over to his house, and we started practicing in his basement. So by then I knew, because something just kind of took over me, like, this is what I wanted to do. This is how I wanted to impact people.
Did you feel that it was like your destiny, you could feel it in your bones, that this is something that you were meant to do and to be a part of your life in some way?
Yeah, it was kind of really hard to understand at a very young age, just because it was something that just literally came over me and said, you're going to dance professionally. And I was, in my mind, I'm like, what is that? I didn't understand it. But then the visual came by seeing Paul. And then once I saw Paul, something sparked inside of me just to start learning and training. And it wasn't like going to a dance studio to train, because, hip hop and street dance is completely different. And so it was about, talking to other people who were training and learning these dances and started learning on your own. So that's a big part of hip hop. Is called each one, teach one. You find a mentor or somebody to learn those from, or you learn it from other people so you can pass that on. So that's how I started training and started learning the other dances from other people, and then started perfecting it myself.
Okay. And after you started learning, what was the next major turning in your life, and how old were you? What happened?
I would say one of the major turning points was probably a little bit later on, middle school, going to middle school and high school. I started Friday nights, we'd go roller skating. And during that time, we'd go roller skating on Friday nights, and afterward, they'd open up the roller skating for dancing. So we had 2 hours of roller skating, 2 hours of dancing. Well, I was going there and started linking with other guys who were just like me, and we put a little crew together. So we started dancing on skates, but then we started battling other crews afterwards that would come in from other parts of the city. So when I was really young, I started testing my skills against other people, from the north side of town, the east side of town, the west side of town. And once, as the 6th, 7th, 8th grade kid, when you start to get those type of reactions from other people in your city, something starts to change. And my confidence really started to change then. But, dance took a little backseat when I got to high school, because I really started getting involved with sports. Like, sports really started taking my life forward, which I started training myself. And dance kind of took a backseat until a little bit later on in my life.
Okay. So you date, and then it kind of peaked at teenage years, 7th, 8th grade. And then sports took over. And then when did it peak again?
Well, it peaked again after high school. I didn't want to go to college. Originally, I wanted to graduate and leave to go to LA and pursue my dance career, because I felt this thing still bubbling inside of me. But, contrary just to beliefs, family wanted me to go to college. Okay. I try to resist as much as I can. I ducked my counselor. I ducked all the signing days and everything, but some miraculous way, my counselor, my family got me to school. Well, my first 2 years in school, I tried to run track there. I was an engineering major and also a recreation major. I couldn't stand the engineering major. It wasn't me. The recreation program I was in for a year and a half, it fell apart. So I'm 2.5 years into college, can't stand it, about to be on academic probation. I happened to have a long talk with a good friend of mine, and he told me about the dance program. He was a dance major. Another good friend of mine was a dance minor theater major. And I told him, I was like, if I'm going to stay in school, man, I got to do something that I love, because I couldn't stand school. So he told me about there was an audition coming up for the university touring troupe. He goes, man, why don't you go audition? And I was like, me being a street kid, I'm like, there's no way they're going to want me. So long story short, I ended up going to an audition, and they ended up picking me up, which was really surprising. They picked me up. I started touring. After my first season of touring, I was offered a scholarship to be a part of the dance program at the University of Northern Colorado. So that's when like things really just started launching. And then from there, my good friend who was a theater major, dance minor, him and I started to put our first company together called Dynamic Dual Productions at the age of 19. And that's when we started teaching and started choreographing, and life changed from there.
And then what was happening at the peak before your crash and burn? So how many people were you performing in front of? Were you performing in stadiums and, you know, how many speakers?
From that time, I'd say from the age of 19 to the age of 28. From 1920, so almost a good solid, you know, 9 to 11 years. It's between those two, 9 and 11 years. I was able to travel from coast to coast, from the East Coast to West Coast, performing in arenas, stage shows, small films, commercials, being a main character in front of, you know, like the Pepsi Center, who holds, you know, almost 25,000 people, theater shows, multiple long production shows, me choreographing them, performing in and producing them. One of the pinnacles that I got to, and one of my dreams, was owning my own dance studio. That came into fruition in 2009 and 2010, which is called Streetside Dance Studio in Boulder, Colorado. I opened it up with two other dance partners. I was the third. The studio is still operational. I'm no longer a partner in the studio, but I'm still proud that my name is up there, and it's part of the legacy of hip hop dancer in Colorado.
Cool. So you were at this peak, and then you don't have to go into detail. Other life kind of overtook the success in crashed and burned.
Yeah, I got to a place where I was very single-minded focused. I was all career-minded, you know, meaning my relationships, family relationships, friend relationships, personal relationships, all that took a backseat because I was so single-minded focused. The backlash of that is I put so much time and energy into my professional career that I neglected my own personal self. And I was giving out more than I was giving into myself, which caused burnt out. I got to a pinnacle, a place of, I was owning the dance studio. I was running another dance studio in a school during the day, and then I go and teach at night at my studio. So I'm in the studio anywhere from 6 to 7 days a week. And I got to a place, I was 35 years old, had 2 dance studios, making the money I want, thought I had the right personal relationship, so I wanted in my life. And I was miserable. I was tired. I didn't want to go to the studio. I was unhappy. And now I started to understand what it meant when you have it all and you're unhappy. And it hit me like a brick, just ton of bricks. Because I said at the age of 35, I was going to retire from dance. But at the age, ironic, the universe at the age of 35 gave me everything that I ever wanted, and I was unhappy.
And that seems to be, you know, of course, for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And you could probably agree that maybe it was a wake up for you, and that's you are today. So you had everything, but the bottom line is you weren't happy, and you crashed and burned, you know, kind of like the phoenix coming out of the ashes. You had to redefine and rediscover yourself.
Yeah, the one thing that has been the beautiful aspect of the phoenix, obviously the heart is the crash and burn of going into the ashes, because no one, I think, especially as a male, your ego does not want to get to that place of crash and burn, especially when you're at this pinnacle of materialism and financial success, and the last thing you want to be is away from that. But the beauty of it is, during the time of the crash and burn, I got to rebuild myself piece by piece. You know, I got to relearn the things that I like to do, things I forgot about, those little passions that had nothing to do with dance, that had nothing to do with the entertainment business, just like listening to music, going on long drives, riding bikes, stuff like that, stuff I loved to do as a kid. Gave me time to get back into that. Also gave me time to discover new things about myself. Growing up, obviously I was a city kid. I started going camping. I started taking long hikes in the mountains, started spending a lot of times in the mountains, started doing things I had never said I would do. But I'm glad that I did it, because it allowed me to grow and allowed me to find those things that I wasn't putting time and energy into because I was, you know, so much into my business. So it's given me time to reevaluate those things. Now, at this stage, I have all these amazing experiences and tools to add to what I learned from 20 years of experience of dance. So I've always said, some of the things, one other thing I like to put out there too as well is, I found a new hobby, an activity to supplement that. I started playing paintball. And it was completely opposite of dance, which I needed to put a new focus to basically start from zero and retrain myself and retrain my body, because dance was so easy for me that I didn't feel like I was growing. But through this activity of playing paintball, I started growing. I also started doing a tournament series. And my first year really going during the tournament season, during the champ, we became champions. So that really reboosted my focus and my energy, who I was a person, that I could focus on doing dance from one aspect and be successful, but pull myself out of there, regroup, refocus on something else, and became successful at that. And because of that success, it really allowed me to grow as a person.
And growth, people would come into your life that would assist you or be a part of your growth, such as myself.
Yes, during that time, like yourself, I met an amazing group of people. It was like all at once. And through those group of people, there was other people I was connected to from my past too that came in, which were all teaching me different lessons of life that I needed to learn. But I didn't really understand it then. They were just giving me these little gems. But those gems really started to become clear when I started doing the work with you, because those little gems started going, aha. But what those gems did allow me to open up to say there was some work that I needed to do. And through the work with you, allow those gems to grow within inside me and go, oh, okay, now it's time. But I didn't really get to understand those until the work we did. You broke everything down and said, this is the things you need to focus on. And once I started to focus on those little breakdowns, I started seeing the changes that I couldn't see prior before.
Isn't that awesome?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the cool thing is, by working with the Thinking Bild program, it's not only helping you, but you're noticing the ripple effect that it has had.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we finished the first phase of the program, you're still, it's almost like it's still in progress. It's still in process. It's not like finished. So in a lot of different programs, once you're done, and then you're kind of on your own to pick up the pieces and figure things out. But it seems that this particular program, you're always reminded of what you've learned and the tools you go back to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's the beauty of the program, is because of the tools, they're always there for you to tap into. Like, I totally agree. Some programs you wrap up and it's done. But with this program here, things keep presenting themselves, even to this day. Certain aspects have presented to me, and the way I would handle those things even 6-7 months ago is completely different now. I'm not even going to say 4 or 5 years ago, but just even 6-7 months ago, I react completely different because of the program. And it's a very ongoing method. It's something that doesn't stop, and I don't see myself not using this, as things go on. I say, we are our own character in our own movie, and the chapters don't end. They continue to go, and depends. I always say you can either be the hero or the villain in your movie. Depends on the choices you make. But I think these tools allow you to look at those and say, what choice do you want to make? No matter if it's at the beginning chapter of the movie or what you think is perceived at the end of the movie, there still will be a choice you have to make.
That is true. And so I think one of the ongoing results is that you're starting to see success again. So I mean, just that.
Well, one of the beautiful successes that I'm seeing is being back into the studio. There was a good almost 1.5 to 2 years that I was not in the studio. Legal situations, outside circumstances that really threw me for a loop, which, brought me to a place of the tools and working with Eileen, because I had to really rethink a lot of stuff. You know, the incident wasn't a pretty incident, you know, but it was something that was kind of a blessing in disguise to really refocus myself. And now, because of that, you know, what I thought was lost is found. I wasn't teaching at my studio a year and a half ago, and I started with 7 students. Almost 2 years removed from that time and back into the studio, my student base is tripled. I'm at 22 students. I was just in the studio this week, and one of the other owners spoke to me and said, this is the largest class that they've ever had, and there's a waiting list. And so they're trying to figure out what to do. And I told them, keep them coming. I can handle more. If it gets to 40, I don't care. Keep them going. So what I perceived was, I thought it was a downfall, ended up tripling my client base from 7 students to over 22 students. And there's kids waiting to get in.
Isn't that amazing? That's exceptional. So, what do you foresee your future to look like now? What kind of plans do you have?
I'll continue to, the piece of, I guess, my legacy that I want to leave for this world is that through dance and hip hop and through movement, that you can build a community. You can give a safe place for children, kids, adults, whoever, to express themselves. You know, I'm an artist, and I've had to fight for my right to express myself. And I just want to make it a little bit easier for other artists and myself to be able to have a clear path to express themselves. Because without artists, how can life be? I mean, so many art programs, music programs, even sports programs get shut down. But people are the first ones on the weekends to turn on the TV, go to see a movie or go see a show or go see their favorite sports team. But if there's no, you know, schools or farm programs or, you know, schools like that for kids to be able to focus on those arts, there won't be those entertainment for people. So my goal is to be able to make it a little bit easier and have faith in those kids that you can do this. Because I know the trials and tribulations, what it takes to become an artist. And when people don't believe in you, got family and friends question you. But when someone says you can do it, it makes a huge difference, you know. And I want to continue to spark that in, you know, children, not even children, they're adults. There's adults out there who haven't lived out their dreams, who want to be artists. You know, a good friend of mine, Jilly, she's, you know, in her early 50s, and she's been told a lot of times that her art wasn't good enough. Now she's in her early 50s. She's selling her art over the line. Don't ever say you're not good enough. Someone just needs to believe in you, say you can, and things could change. No matter if you're a young kid or an adult, just sometimes someone just needs to believe in you.
Exactly. Anything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's like expect the unexpected.
Yeah.
Well, Troy, this has been awesome. And thank you for sharing your journey from 18
Thank you.
to now and into the future. And we'll definitely have to do this again and see what else is in there.
Yes.